The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was a place of wonder. Light came from everywhere and nowhere, shining on the representatives of 100 species. Some were tall and thin, with skin like polished stone. Others were small and moved in quick, nervous bursts. A few were like living clouds, their forms shifting inside special suits. The air hummed with the sound of many languages being translated at once. The center of it all was Counselor Valeria. She was tall and graceful, with features that were both bird-like and noble. Her long neck swayed gently as she looked over the crowd. She had led these meetings for a very long time. She believed in order, rules, and the slow, careful growth of the Galactic Commonwealth. Today was another step in that growth. Today they were to welcome a new species, humanity. The main doors, which were 3 times taller than a human, opened without a sound. The gentle buzz of conversation in the chamber slowed and then stopped. All eyes turned to the new arrivals. The human delegation walked in. There were only 5 of them. They looked very small and very plain compared to the aliens around them. They walked on 2 legs, had 2 arms, and wore simple, dark gray suits. They were the most normal-looking beings in the room. At the front of the group was the new human ambassador, Li Min. He was a young man with black hair and calm eyes. He did not look around in awe or fear. He simply observed everything, his face neutral. To the council, he looked like a child. They saw a species that had just barely learned to travel between stars. A species that should be grateful just to be in this room. Behind Li Min was his team. Captain Jean Su, the commander of their ship, had a stern and serious face. He stood straight, his eyes moving around the room, checking for threats. The scientist, Choi Yuna, watched the alien delegates with a sharp, curious look. She was studying them, trying to understand how they thought. The engineer, Park Dae, looked less at the aliens and more at the room itself, the flow of energy in the walls, the hidden technology. He was a practical man, interested in how things worked. Counselor Valeria spread her thin, graceful hands in a gesture of welcome. "Delegates of the Galactic Commonwealth," she began, her voice soft but reaching every corner of the hall. "We gather today for a momentous occasion. The species known as humanity has reached a level of development that makes them eligible for inclusion in our great community." Li Min and his team stopped in the center of the open floor. They did not move to the special guest platform that was ready for them. This small act of independence was noticed by a few delegates, who clicked their tongues or flashed their lights in mild annoyance. "The path to full membership is a sacred one," Valeria continued. She was looking at Li Min, but she was speaking to the entire council. "It is built on mutual understanding, shared responsibility, and, most importantly, unity. For a young species, the galaxy can be a dangerous and confusing place. We offer a guiding hand. We offer the protection of our combined strength." Choi Yuna leaned in very close to Li Min's ear. Her voice was a quiet whisper. Her speech patterns are identical to the historical records for integrating the Kthar and the XYL. It is a standard script. They see us as children who need rules. Li Min gave a tiny, almost invisible nod. He had expected this. He had studied everything about the council. He knew they were not evil, but they were proud. They had not faced a real challenge in centuries. They believed their way was the only way. Counselor Valeria now listed the terms. Her voice was kind, but the terms were not. "To ensure a smooth integration and to protect the cultural purity of all member worlds, humanity will submit 95% of its historical and cultural archives to the council's curators for review and safekeeping." A few humans in the crowd might have gasped, but Li Min's team did not react. They stood still, to prevent tragic conflicts born of inexperience. Valeria went on. "The human military and exploratory fleet will be disbanded. Your people will join the Commonwealth Peacekeeping Force, where you will learn proper protocols under experienced command." Captain Jean Su's jaw tightened. His hands, held behind his back, clenched into fists. To disband the fleet that had protected Earth for generations was unthinkable. "Finally," Valeria said, her tone making it sound like a great gift, "your existing colonies outside your home system will be reclassified as development zones. They will be managed by council-appointed advisors to help them reach their full potential, for the benefit of the entire Commonwealth." It was a complete takeover. They wanted human history, human defense, and human land. They were offering a fancy cage. The council delegates watched the humans, waiting for the expected reaction. They waited for the grateful bow, the tears of joy, the speech of thanks. This was how it always went. New species were always so overwhelmed by the council's majesty that they agreed to anything. Counselor Valeria finished her speech. She looked down at Li Min with a gentle smile. "The floor is now open for the Terran delegation to formally accept these terms and swear the oaths of compliance." The moment had arrived. Every strange eye in the room was on Li Min. The silence was heavy. Li Min did not move to the speaking platform. He took one single step forward on the smooth, shiny floor. He looked directly at Counselor Valeria. He did not bow. "Counselor," he said. His voice was calm and clear. It was not the voice of a nervous child. It was the voice of a man who was completely sure of himself. "Delegates." He paused, letting the silence grow. "Humanity thanks you for your offer." He used the word offer in a strange way. It did not sound grateful. It sounded like he was holding something dirty in his hand. "However," Li Min said, his tone not changing at all, "we must decline." For a second, nothing happened. The translators in the room finished their work. The words settled into the minds of every delegate. Then, the Great Hall of the Galactic Council exploded into noise. The silence in the Great Hall did not last. It was a fragile thing, shattered by a wave of sound that was unlike anything the human ears had ever heard. It was a storm of clicks, whistles, deep rumbles, and the sharp clacking of hard body parts. The chamber, a place of perfect order, became a scene of pure chaos. Lights on alien bodies flashed in patterns of alarm and outrage. A tall, insect-like delegate rose on its thin legs, its mandibles clashing together loudly. A being made of what looked like molten rock bubbled and spat, its heat causing the air around it to shimmer. Counselor Valeria stood at the center of it all. Her usually smooth, feather-like skin was pressed flat against her body in a show of utter shock. Her large, dark eyes were wide. For a long moment, she was completely still, her mind unable to process what had just happened. In the 1,000-year history of the Commonwealth, no one had ever said no. Submission was the only option ever presented. The very idea of refusal did not exist in their procedures. Her eyes found Li Min again. He was still standing in the same spot, perfectly calm amidst the alien uproar. His hands were relaxed at his sides. His team stood behind him, a solid wall of quiet resolve. Captain Jean Su had moved half a step closer, his protective instincts on high alert, but his face was a mask of cool control. Choi Yuna was watching the different delegates, her sharp mind cataloging every reaction, every sign of aggression or panic. Park Dae had a small, handheld device out, likely monitoring the room's energy levels for any sign of a threat. The noise began to die down as the delegates realized the human was not speaking again. They were waiting for an explanation. They needed to understand this break from reality. Counselor Valeria finally found her voice. It was not as smooth as before. A sharp edge of confusion and frustration had crept in. "Ambassador Li Min," she said, the words cutting through the last of the noise. "You will clarify your statement immediately. Do you reject the specific terms? We are, of course, open to minor negotiations on resource quotas or a slightly adjusted timeline for your fleet's integration." She said this as if she were offering a great gift. She believed the human was simply playing a game, trying to get a better deal. It was a bold move for a new species, but one she could understand. Greed was a universal constant. Li Min looked at her, and for the first time, a very small, very polite smile appeared on his lips. It was not a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile one gives when they have to explain something very simple to someone who is not understanding. "Counselor," he said, his voice still calm and clear. "I believe I was clear. We reject the premise. We will not be joining the Galactic Commonwealth under these, or any similar, conditions." The hall erupted again, but Valeria raised a hand, and the noise was suppressed by the chamber's sound-dampening systems. A forced silence fell. Her patience was wearing thin. "Ambassador, you are being foolish. You speak of premise. The premise is safety. The premise is order. What other premise could there be?" This was the opening Li Min had been waiting for. He took another step forward, and now he did not just look at Valeria. He slowly turned his head, making eye contact with the most vocal delegates, one by one. He was no longer a supplicant. He was a prosecutor. "You offer us membership," he began, his voice gaining a slight edge. "But the legal documents, which my team has studied in detail, demand 95% of our cultural and historical archives. You do not ask for a sharing of knowledge. You demand a surrender of our identity. You want to take our stories, our art, our music, our very soul, and lock it away in your vaults. You call this safekeeping. We call it theft." A ripple of discomfort went through some of the delegates. The truth, stated so plainly, was uncomfortable. "You require," Li Min continued, his gaze now fixed on a hulking, reptilian delegate who represented the Commonwealth's military, "that we disband our defensive forces. You say it is to prevent conflict, but you offer no shared command, no equal say. You would have our soldiers and sailors take orders from those who do not know our people, who do not share our values. You would leave our home world undefended, trusting our safety entirely to you. Humanity has a long history. We have learned the hard way never to put our safety entirely in the hands of another." Captain Jean Su gave a single, firm nod of agreement. His eyes were locked on the reptilian delegate, a silent challenge. And finally, Li Min said, turning back to Valeria, his voice rising slightly. "You speak of our colonies as development zones. You would place your advisors in charge. You would decide what we can build, what we can mine, where we can live. You do not see partners. You do not see equals. You see a client species, a resource to be managed, a problem to be solved." He let those words hang in the air. The silence was now absolute and heavy. "Humanity," Li Min said, his voice dropping back to a calm, conversational tone that was somehow more powerful than a shout, "has fought for thousands of years for its unity. We have bled for our self-determination. We have crossed the vast, empty darkness between stars not to find new masters, but to find a new home. We did not come all this way to surrender our freedom at the first invitation to a gilded cage." He was finished. He had not raised his voice, but his words had hit the council like physical blows. Counselor Valeria stared at him. Her mind was racing. The young human was not negotiating. He was not being greedy. He was rejecting their entire way of life. He was calling their great commonwealth a cage. The insult was so profound she could barely form a response. Her own calm finally broke. Her diplomatic tone vanished, replaced by one of cold, hard warning. "Ambassador Li Min," she said, her voice sharp, "you are naive. The galaxy is not a kind place. Your species is young and fragile. You have no idea of the dangers that exist in the dark between stars. Without our protection, without our structure, you will be prey for forces you cannot even comprehend." She meant it as the final, crushing argument. It was the ultimate truth that always brought stubborn species into line. Fear. But Li Min did not look afraid. He looked interested. He tilted his head slightly. "We are aware of the forces, Counselor," he replied, and his tone was now dangerously quiet. "The Gornak's hegemony, for instance." The moment he said the name, a wave of visible shock went through the chamber. Delegates recoiled. Valeria actually took a half-step back. The Gornaks were the monster in the dark, the one threat the Commonwealth never discussed in open session. Li Min continued, his words precise and cutting. "The same Gornak's hegemony that the Council pays a substantial tribute to every cycle. A tribute paid in rare minerals and the coordinates of undefended, non-member worlds on your periphery. You pay them to look the other way. You pay them to raid others instead of you." He had done it. He had spoken the unspeakable secret. The Council was not a shield against the darkness. It was a group that made deals with the darkness to save itself. "You are not the peacemakers you claim to be," Li Min said, his voice filled with a final, dismissive coldness. "You are landlords who pay off the local bully. Humanity would rather face the bully ourselves than become one of your paying tenants." Then he did the most shocking thing of all. He turned his back on Counselor Valeria. He turned his back on the entire Galactic Council. It was the ultimate sign of disrespect. Without another word, without being dismissed, he began to walk towards the giant doors. His team turned with him, a unified movement, and followed him out. The doors closed behind them with a soft, final sound. Inside the hall, the silence was broken by the frantic, rising noise of a system that had just been broken. Counselor Valeria could only stare at the empty space where the human had been standing. The giant doors of the council chamber sealed shut. The sound was not loud, but in the stunned silence, it was as final as a tomb closing. For a long moment, no one in the hall moved or spoke. The air itself seemed thick and heavy with disbelief. Then, the chaos returned, louder and more frantic than before. The polished, orderly meeting had shattered. Delegates were on their feet, their forms shaking with outrage. Lights flashed in angry patterns. The insectoid delegates' clicks were so fast and sharp they sounded like gunfire. The molten rock being was a small volcano of bubbling fury. Counselor Valeria stood frozen at the center. Her mind was a storm of confusion and anger. Li Min's words echoed in her head. Paying tenants. Landlords. Gilded cage. Each phrase was an insult to 1,000 years of tradition. But worse than the insults was the truth he had spoken aloud. The arrangement with the Gornak's hegemony was the Commonwealth's most deeply buried secret. It was the ugly, necessary deal that kept the peace. It was not for a young, foolish species to know, and certainly not for them to judge. Her eyes, wide and dark, scanned the panicked crowd. The human had not just refused them, he had exposed them. He had thrown a rock into their quiet pond, and now the water was choppy and wild. Her authority was crumbling before her. She had to regain control. "Order!" she commanded, her voice cutting through the noise with a strength she did not feel. "We will have order." The noise slowly died down. 100 different sets of eyes, from simple orbs to complex clusters, turned to her. They were waiting for her to fix this. They were waiting for her to put the human in his place. "The human delegation has acted with profound disrespect," Valeria said, her voice cold and hard. "They are emotional. They are inexperienced. They believe their stubborn pride is a strength. It is a weakness. She drew herself up to her full height. They will see the error of their ways. They have no choice. Without our protection, they are nothing. They will be back. And when they return, they will beg for the terms they so foolishly spurned today. She said the words with conviction, trying to make herself believe them. But a cold knot of doubt had formed in her stomach. Li Min's calm, certain face would not leave her mind. He had not looked emotional. He had looked utterly in control. Meanwhile, the human delegation walked down the vast, gleaming hallway away from the chamber. Their footsteps were the only sound. They did not speak until they were inside the secure elevator that would take them back to their ship as the doors closed. Captain Jean Su let out a long, slow breath. His shoulders, which had been held rigidly straight, relaxed just a little. He looked at Li Min, a new respect in his eyes. "Well," Jean Su said, his voice a low rumble. "That is a thing that has never been done before." Choi Yuna, the scientist, was already looking at the data on her tablet. Her face was lit with excitement. Their reactions were exactly as predicted, but more intense. The confirmation of the Gornak's tribute was the key. Valeria's physiological readings, from what I could gather, spiked into pure panic. "You broke their narrative, Ambassador." Park Day, the engineer, chuckled softly. "I was monitoring the chamber's power grid. When you mentioned the Gornak's, energy consumption tripled. They were sending so many frantic, encrypted messages. Their system is in shock." Li Min leaned against the wall of the elevator. The calm mask he had worn in the chamber slipped away, revealing the tired man underneath. The pressure had been immense. "It had to be done," he said simply. "Joining them on their terms would have been the end of us. A slow end, maybe over a few generations, but an end all the same." The elevator doors opened into the docking bay where their ship, the Odyssey, was waiting. It was a sleek, gray vessel, built for long journeys and tough conditions. It looked functional and strong, unlike the ornate and delicate ships of the other species. To the humans, it was home. Once aboard, the familiar sounds and smells of their own ship were a comfort. The crew on the bridge looked at them, their faces full of questions. They had watched the broadcast of the council meeting. Li Min went straight to the bridge and stood before his crew. "You all heard," he said. "The Galactic Council did not want a partner. They wanted a servant. We said no." He looked at their faces. He saw worry, but he also saw determination. "They believe we are weak and foolish," Li Min continued. "They believe we will fail without them. They are waiting for us to fail. We will not give them the satisfaction." Captain Jean Su set a course for the Kthar border. It is time we spoke with their neighbors. Back on the council chamber, Valeria was in her private office. The walls showed star charts and data streams. She was speaking to a hidden screen. On it was the blurred, fearsome face of the Gornak's hegemony's war boss. "The situation has changed," Valeria said, trying to keep her voice steady. "The new species, the humans, have refused integration. They are defiant." The warboss's grin was a terrifying thing, full of sharp, metallic teeth. "Defiant? I like defiant. Defiant meat is always more fun to break." "They know of our arrangement," Valeria said, her voice tight. The grin on the screen widened. "Do they? Then they are not just defiant, they are dangerous. Dangerous little creatures cannot be allowed to run free. They spread ideas. My payment for this cycle just increased by 50%. And I think I will collect a bonus from this human world myself. Send me their coordinates." Valeria felt a chill. This was what she had feared. The humans' actions were already causing real, violent consequences. She had to contain this. "They are under our protection," she lied, her voice weak. The war boss laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "You said they refused you. They are not under your protection. They are alone. Send the coordinates." Valeria knew she had no choice. If she refused, the Gornaks might turn on the Commonwealth itself. The ugly deal was the only thing that kept them safe. She entered the coordinates for the human outer colony, New Hope, and sent them. "A wise choice," the war boss purred. "We will pay them a visit. Do not interfere." The screen went dark. Valeria sat in the silence, feeling sick. She told herself it was necessary. The humans had brought this on themselves. Their pride would be their destruction. And when they were broken, they would finally understand the need for the Commonwealth's order. They would learn their place. She looked out at the stars, a cold certainty settling over her. The human experiment in independence would be very, very short. The galaxy would see what happened to those who spurned the Council's grace. It was a lesson that needed to be taught. The bridge of the Odyssey was a quiet place, but it was the quiet of focused work, not peace. Every crew member was at their station, their faces lit by the soft glow of their screens. They were traveling through a part of space that was now officially hostile territory. Captain Jin-Soo sat in his command chair, his eyes constantly moving across the main display, checking for any sign of trouble. Ambassador Li Min stood near the back, speaking with Choi Yuna. They were looking at a list of star systems and the species that lived there. The Kthar were the last species the Council integrated by force, Choi Yuna explained, pointing at the data. Their records show a similar treaty was forced on them. They lost control of their military and their colonies. They are not happy members of the Commonwealth. They are the most likely to listen to us. Li Min nodded. We need to show them there is another way. We cannot be the only ones who chafe under the Council's control. Suddenly, a sharp, urgent beeping sound cut through the quiet of the bridge. A young officer at the sensor station straightened up, her voice tense. Captain, I'm detecting a massive energy signature emerging from warp. Bearing 327, Mark 010. It's a Gornax raiding fleet. A cold feeling settled in the stomach of everyone on the bridge. On the main screen, a section of space twisted and tore open. Several ships slid out. They were ugly, brutal things, looking like they were built from sharpened asteroids and rusted metal. They were blocky and covered in weapons. They flew in a messy, aggressive formation. This was not the clean, orderly navy of the Commonwealth. This was a pack of wolves. Jin-Soo's voice was calm and immediate. Red alert. All hands to battle stations. Shields to maximum. Power all defensive systems. The lights on the bridge dimmed and turned a faint red. The quiet was replaced by the sound of readiness alarms and crew members reporting in. Li Min moved to stand beside Jin-Soo. Their course? He asked, his voice low. Jin-Soo studied the data. They are not heading for us. They are on a direct course for the outer colony, New Hope. He looked at Li Min, his face grim. Valeria gave them the coordinates. She sent them right to our people. There was no time for anger. There was only time for action. Can we get there in time? Li Min asked. We are closer than they are, Jin-Soo said, his fingers already flying across his command console. But it will be close. The colony's defenses are light. They are farmers and engineers, not soldiers. They cannot hold against that. He turned to his navigation officer. Plot an emergency warp jump. Directly to New Hope. Now. The Odyssey shuddered as its powerful engines spun up, preparing for the dangerous, short-range jump. On the Galactic Council watch station nearby, the scene was observed with cold interest. The station was operated by a species of jelly-like beings who were loyal members of the Commonwealth. They watched the Gornax fleet emerge. They watched the human ship change course. They immediately sent a report to Counselor Valeria. The Gornax have arrived in the human sector, as anticipated. The human vessel, the Odyssey, is moving to intercept. It is one ship against a full raiding fleet. The predicted outcome is the destruction of the human ship and the subjugation of the human colony. Valeria received the message in her office. A small, sad smile touched her lips. It was a tragedy, but a necessary one. The humans would learn. The galaxy would see. Defiance had only one end. She ordered the watch station to record everything. The footage would be a valuable lesson for the next species that considered refusing the Council's generous offer. Space around the colony of New Hope twisted again as the Odyssey shot out of warp. The planet below was a green and blue jewel, peaceful and unaware. The Gornax fleet was already approaching, their weapons glowing with a malevolent energy. Open a channel to the colony, Jin-Soo ordered. The screen lit up, showing the face of the colony leader, a woman with worry etched on her face. Captain Jin-Soo, we see them. Our shields are up, but they won't hold for long. Stand by, Governor, Jin-Soo said, his voice steady. We are here. Follow the contingency plans. Get your people to the shelters. He cut the channel and turned to his crew. This is it. They outnumber us 10-1. They have heavier weapons. So we will not fight them head-on. We will be a hornet. We will be everywhere at once. Tactical, I want a full spread of sensor drones. I want to see every inch of their formation. I want to know if one of them has a loose bolt. The Gornax fleet did not bother with communication. They opened fire. Massive beams of red energy shot towards the Odyssey. The ship rocked as the beams slammed into its shields. Shields holding at 80%, the tactical officer reported. Evasive pattern delta. Jin-Soo commanded. All power to engines. They are big and slow. We are small and fast. Use it. The Odyssey shot forward, not away from the Gornax, but towards them. It flew straight at the largest ship, then at the last second veered sharply down and under it. The Gornax ships tried to turn, but they were clumsy. They were built for intimidation and brute force, not for a fight with a nimble, thinking enemy. Target their engine arrays, Jin-Soo said. Precision strikes only. We do not have the power to punch through their main armor. The Odyssey fired back. Its beams were thinner and brighter than the Gornax's. They did not try to destroy the enemy ships. They aimed for the delicate parts at the back, the engine nozzles, the power conduits. On one Gornax ship, an engine exploded in a silent flash, causing the ship to spin out of control. The Gornax warboss on his flagship snarled in frustration. The human ship was like a fly, buzzing around his head, impossible to swat. He ordered his ships to break formation and surround it. On the Odyssey, Park Day was in engineering, monitoring the strain on the systems. Captain, their weapons are causing a feedback pulse in our shield emitters. If we take 2 more direct hits like the last one, the forward shields will collapse. Jin-Soo did not hesitate. Then we will not let them hit us. Helm, bring us in close to the ship we just damaged. Use it as a shield. The Odyssey flew so close to the crippled Gornax ship that their shields almost touched. The other Gornax ships could not fire without hitting their own vessel. They were forced to hold their fire, their formation breaking down into confusion. Li Min watched from the bridge, his heart pounding. He was not a soldier, but he understood what he was seeing. This was not a battle of power. It was a battle of wits. The humans were using their minds. They were using creativity and tactics against raw strength. The Gornax warboss, enraged, made a mistake. He ordered his own ship to charge forward, to crush the Odyssey with its sheer mass. Jin-Soo saw it coming. Helm, full reverse. Now, tactical, target the space right in front of that ship. Fire a full spread of torpedoes and dump all our waste energy from the engines into that spot. The Odyssey shot backwards. At the same time, it fired a cluster of torpedoes which exploded in the empty space directly in the path of the charging Gornax flagship. The explosion, combined with the sudden cloud of superheated plasma from the engine dump, created a temporary, blinding screen. The Gornax flagship, moving too fast to stop, flew right into it. For a few seconds, it was blind and its sensors were scrambled. That's our window, Jin-Soo yelled. Target their primary weapon battery. Fire everything we have left. The Odyssey unleashed a concentrated volley of fire into the side of the massive Gornax ship. The armor there was weaker. Beams and torpedoes tore into it, causing a chain reaction of internal explosions. A huge chunk of the ship blew apart, venting atmosphere and debris into space. The flagship was not destroyed, but it was crippled, its main guns silent. The other Gornax ships, seeing their leader disabled, stopped their attack. They hovered in space, unsure what to do. The fight had gone completely wrong. On the bridge of the Odyssey, the crew let out a collective breath. They were battered. Warning lights flashed all over the console, but they were intact. Jin-Soo looked at the frozen Gornax fleet, then at the unharmed colony below. Send a message to the Gornax warboss, he said. Tell him he can leave now with what ships he has left, or he can stay, and we will finish this. They waited. A long minute passed. Then, one by one, the Gornax ships, including the damaged flagship, turned and began to limp away, heading for the nearest warp point. The battle was over. The humans had won. The Gornax raiding fleet was gone. The silence on the bridge of the Odyssey felt heavy and profound after the noise of battle. For a moment, no one moved. Then, a quiet cheer went up, starting from one station and spreading to the next. It was not a loud or proud cheer. It was the sound of relief, of people who had faced death and had, against all odds, survived. Captain Jin-Soo slowly unclenched his hands from the arms of his command chair. He took a deep, steadying breath. Damage report, he said, his voice hoarse. All across the bridge, officers began calling out status updates. Hull integrity at 90%. Minor breaches on decks 4 and 5, sealed off. Shield generators are down to 20%. They need a full cycle to recharge. We have some minor power fluctuations in the port engine, but it's holding. They were bruised, but they were alive. The colony of New Hope was safe. Jin-Soo turned to Li Min. The ambassador's face was pale, but his eyes were bright. They will not forget that, Captain, Li Min said. But they will be back, and in greater numbers. I know, Jin-Soo replied. But now they know we are not easy prey. Down in engineering, Park Day was already directing his team. They moved through the cramped, hot spaces of the ship, welding broken conduits and rerouting power. The air smelled of ozone and burned metal. Park Day wiped sweat from his forehead with a greasy rag. He looked at the damaged shield emitter with a critical eye. It was his design and it had held. He felt a fierce pride. The Council's perfect, clean technology would have shattered. His patchwork, robust systems had taken the beating and survived. On the Galactic Council watch station, there was no cheering. The jelly-like beings operating the sensors were utterly still. Their forms, which usually pulsed with a soft light, were dim. They had recorded the entire battle. They had seen everything. They watched the single, small human ship dance around the clumsy Gornax fleet. They saw the precise strikes that crippled the enemy engines. They saw the clever use of a damaged ship as a shield. They saw the brilliant trick with the torpedoes and engine plasma that blinded the flagship. And they saw the final, defiant volley that broke the Gornak's will to fight. This was not in any of their predictions. This was not how the story was supposed to end. A client species, a new, fragile race, had not only faced a Gornak's raid, but had decisively defeated it. One of the operators finally found its voice. It sent a new, urgent message to Counselor Valeria. The message was simple. The human vessel Odyssey has engaged the Gornak's raiding fleet. The Gornak's fleet has been repelled. The human colony is secure. The human ship is damaged but operational. The message ended with a single, shocking line of data. Combat outcome. Human victory. Counselor Valeria was in the middle of a calming meditation when the message arrived. She was picturing the humble, defeated humans returning to the council, ready to accept any terms. The alert on her screen broke her concentration. She opened the message. She read it once. Then she read it again. Her mind refused to accept the words. Repelled. Secure. Victory. They were words that did not belong together when describing humans and Gornaks. She pulled up the battle recording. She watched it with growing horror. This was not a fluke. This was not luck. She saw the skill, the coordination, the brilliant tactics. The humans had not fought with brute strength. They had fought with intelligence and a cold, calculated courage that she found deeply frightening. Li Min's words came back to her. Humanity would rather face the bully ourselves. They had not been a bluff. They had been a statement of fact. A cold dread washed over her. She had made a terrible, terrible mistake. She had not sent the Gornaks to punish a naughty child. She had sent them to test a new predator. And the predator had won. The balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted. The secret of the Gornak's tribute was now worthless. Why would anyone pay a bully for protection when a new, smaller species could defeat that bully on its own? Her door chimed. It was other senior council members. Their faces were screens of panic and fear. They had seen the recording too. What have you done, Valeria? One of them demanded, his tentacles waving in agitation. You have shown the entire galaxy that the Commonwealth is weak. You have shown that the Gornaks can be beaten. The humans. Another whispered. They are not what we thought. They are dangerous. Valeria could only stare at them. She had no answer. Her grand plan to teach the humans a lesson had blown up in her face. The lesson had been taught, but it was the Commonwealth that had learned it. They had learned that humanity was not fragile. They were formidable. Aboard the Odyssey, repairs were underway. Li Min and Choi Yuna were in the briefing room, looking at a star map. The Kthar will have seen this, Choi Yuna said, her finger pointing to their system. Their listening posts are some of the best. They know what just happened. Li Min nodded. A message from a small ship is one thing. A victory against the Gornaks is another. It is proof. Proof that we can stand on our own. Proof that the Council's way is not the only way. He composed a new message. This one was not just for the Kthar. He sent it on an open channel, a channel that every species in the galaxy could hear if they were listening. It is not a call to war, he explained to Jinsu. It is a call to dinner. The message was simple. It did not boast about the victory. It did not insult the Council. It stated the facts. A Gornak's fleet had attacked a human world. The human defense force had protected its people. The threat was gone. Then it extended an invitation. It was an invitation to all independent species, and to all species who felt the weight of the Commonwealth's control, to meet, to discuss a new idea. En alliance. Not an empire. Compact. An agreement for mutual trade and mutual defense, where every species kept its own government, its own military, and its own freedom. They would call it the Terran Compact. Li Min finished the message and sent it out into the void. He had no idea who would answer, but he knew that the galaxy was listening now. The story of the strange, defiant humans had just gotten a lot more interesting. The humans were not just proud. They were powerful, and they were offering a new path. The message from the human ship spread across the galaxy like a ripple on a pond. It moved from one star system to the next, heard by listening posts and government channels. The story of the human victory was already a shock. But the invitation that followed was a revolution. On the bridge of the Odyssey. The crew waited. They had chosen a neutral star system for the meeting, a quiet place with no planets, only a small white dwarf star and a field of asteroids. They waited in silence, watching the stars. Captain Jinsu stood near his command chair. Do you think anyone will come? He asked Li Min. Li Min watched the main screen. They will, he said, his voice quiet but sure. Fear of the Council is strong, but hope for freedom is stronger. They just needed to see that it was possible. The first ship arrived. It was a vessel they recognized from their files. It was a Kthar ship. It was not sleek or beautiful. It was blocky and functional, covered in old weapon mounts and repair patches. It moved cautiously, like a wild animal coming to a watering hole. It did not hail them. It simply took up a position at a far distance and waited. Then another ship came. This one was from a species called the Vree, a race of quiet, plant-like beings who were known for their science. Their ship was elegant, shaped like a giant seed pod. It moved closer than the Kthar ship. Then more came. A ship from the Torka, a species of miners who lived in asteroid belts. Another from the slender, artistic Fel. One by one, ships popped into existence around them. They were all different. They were all species that had been offered the same choice as humanity. Some had accepted and lived under the Council's thumb. Others had stayed independent and poor, hiding from the Gornaks. None of them spoke. They just gathered in the silence, a small fleet of the unwanted and the unhappy. Li Min looked at the gathering on the screen. It was a powerful sight. He opened a channel to all of them. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice calm and welcoming. "You have all seen what happened. You know that the old way is not the only way. We are not here to form a new empire. We are not here to tell you what to do. We are here to offer a hand. If one of us is attacked, the others will come. If one of us needs food, the others will trade. If one of us has a new idea, we will share it. We will be stronger together, but we will each remain free." He did not give a long speech. He simply stated the idea. Compact. En alliance. Promise. From the Kthar ship, a response finally came. The face on the screen was old and scarred. "The Council will not allow this," the Kthar leader said, his voice a low growl. "They do not have to allow it," Li Min replied. "We are not asking for their permission. We are stating our intention. We are free species. We have the right to choose our own friends." A quiet agreement passed through the gathered ships. It was not a loud celebration. It was a solemn understanding. They were doing something brave and dangerous. They were standing together. On the Galactic Council, panic had turned into a slow, cold fear. They had monitored the gathering at the White Dwarf Star. They saw the ships. They heard Li Min's words. Councillor Valeria stood before the full council. The great hall was silent, but the silence was now one of dread, not order. "He is forming a rebellion," a delegate shouted, his lights flashing red. "He is offering them a choice," Valeria corrected, her voice tired. She felt very old. "And they are choosing him." She knew they could not attack this new compact. To attack it would be to prove Li Min right. It would show the galaxy that the Commonwealth was indeed a cage that did not allow anyone to leave. And after the human victory over the Gornaks, she was no longer sure they could win a fight. There was only one path left, a path that tasted like ash in her mouth. "I will go," she said. The council members looked at her in shock. "I will go and speak with Ambassador Li Min. We must find a way to live with this." Aboard the Odyssey, an alert sounded. "Captain," the communications officer said, "we are receiving a hail from a Galactic Council vessel. It is Councillor Valeria. She is requesting permission to come aboard. She is alone." Jin Su raised an eyebrow. "Alone? That is either very brave or very foolish." Li Min thought for a moment. "It is neither. It is necessary. Grant her permission." Soon, the elegant council shuttle was docking with the much plainer human ship. Valeria stepped onto the Odyssey's deck. She looked out of place. Her fine robes seemed too bright for the gray, functional metal of the human ship. She was led to the observation deck. Li Min was waiting for her, standing before a large window that looked out at the stars and the small fleet of compact ships. He did not turn around. "Counselor," he said. "Ambassador," she replied. She stood beside him, looking at the view. The sight of all those ships, gathered freely, was a stark contrast to her own orderly, controlled council chamber. "You have shattered a system that held for 1,000 years," she said. There was no anger in her voice now, only a deep weariness. Li Min finally turned to look at her. "A system built on fear and control deserves to be shattered, Counselor. We did not break it to be cruel. We broke it to build something better." He gestured to the ships outside. "We are not your enemies. We never were. We just wanted to be free. We are not here to be your subjects." He looked her directly in the eyes. "We are here to be your neighbors. The question is, will you be good ones?" Valeria held his gaze. The young human was no longer an upstart. He was the leader of a new power. He was offering her a chance for peace, but on new terms, terms of equality. She looked back at the stars. The old galaxy was gone. A new one was being born right in front of her. It was messy. It was unpredictable. It was frightening. But for the first time, she saw a flicker of something else in it. Not just fear, but hope. She did not give him an answer. She didn't need to. Her presence here was the answer. The Galactic Council was talking to the Terran Compact. They were not master and servant. They were two powers, meeting for the first time. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next.